as the president of DRC was giving a speech for independence, he specifically said that no doubt Rwanda was backing a rebellion on their territory. How would you respond to him? And secondly, what do you think can be done about this crisis?
Everything or most of these things have a history. So it's not just like it happened anyhow. So the history of either Kinyarwanda speaking Congolese or these crises that happen on and off over the years between Congo and Rwanda have a history. And we have been in these kinds of situations, we have had to say things that we think need to be addressed, but they were never addressed properly, and that's how these matters keep recurring. Let me give an example. The so-called M23. There was a crisis in 2012, I think. And this crisis drew in all kinds of countries and regions, and including international institutions and like the UN and big countries, powers that decide on many things. And they made one mistake, which we pointed out at that time, that such matters are not resolved by force of arms. They don't require military solutions. They require more political solutions. They ignored what we were telling them. They just, fought the so-called M23 without even understanding why it was born and how it came to be. Defeated it, and the remnants fled to two countries mainly. One group went to Uganda, another group came to Rwanda. And these groups, some of them are still either in Rwanda, others in Uganda. But we kept reminding them that there was a political solution that they needed to apply, which they didn't. Maybe that since they had been defeated militarily, there was need to address those matters, political. And that is, these, as you called them, Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, it means they speak Kinyarwanda, but they are Congolese citizens. How they became citizens of Congo cannot be blamed on Congo or cannot be blamed on Rwanda. We didn't decide that these people go to Congo to be their citizens. And maybe the Congolese didn't decide that. But that is the fact of the matter. So how do you, at any one point, just decide that you are now going to declare people no longer citizens of their countries? Where do you start from? And how can you actually effect that? Now what happens, the same people will always find ways of pushing back, of fighting back, of making sure that they have to belong somewhere. Now, saying that they belong to Rwanda is a big mistake because, no, all the years they have been in Congo, they know Congo as their own country. And of course, there is the mix of drawing of borders and so on in the early times during colonial times. So if you want to push back these people and throw them out of the country they belong to, then you better throw them out with the land they have been occupying, which happened to be on one side or the other by just arbitrary lines that were drawn during colonial times. But that's, maybe I shouldn't even have said that, because some people will distort it and complicate it and say different things, but that's not what I meant. I'm just applying logic to this whole matter. So, these people are forgotten. By the way, we have refugees here from Congo. They've been staying here for now close to 2 decades. And most of them, these Kinyarwanda speaking Congolese. They left their homes, their ancestral homes in the other side of Congo. We've been asking different governments in Congo that these people need to be taken back to their countries, to their country and to their places where they belong. Or that government of DRC, whichever government it was, needed to find a way of speaking to these people and reintegrating them back in the society of Congo. That did not happen until recently. In fact, when President Tshisekedi became president, right from the outset, these matters were discussed with him directly or with his officials. In fact, on the side of M23, the officials of DRC came here several times talking to these people directly, because when they were thrown out of Congo and came here, we disarmed them and gave back to Congo these arms they were using to fight their country. But what remained was the repatriation of these people back to Congo, which never happened. And even under President Tshisekedi, these officials came here, met them several times, and promised them they were actually going to address that problem. And with our assistance, because they would talk to them with our people trying to assist and to find ways of taking them back. They came here several times, they talked to them, they would go back, the promises made to them, which were never fulfilled, they come back another time, then another time, then another time, several times. So, until recently, when this fighting was about to happen, we were talking to DRC again and actually alerting them to the information we had that this trouble was again building up and they needed to do something, which they never did. So I'm not, on one hand, I'm surprised, and on the other, I'm not surprised, because for that history that has been talked about so many times, you wouldn't expect people to be confused about it, because the facts are clear. On the other, I'm not surprised, because this has come to be the thing to expect that has happened over these last 20 years. Just back and forth, and completely using wrong arguments. But there are people in the world who listen to such wrong arguments and based on them to even make wrong decisions. In fact, when they were defeated, and then there was a force that was created, Force Intervention Brigade, then there was MONUSCO under the UN, and all these were supposed to make sure that, first of all, there is peace, there is a ceasefire, but that ceasefire facilitating political solutions. One, there has been a process, for example, you may know, of FDLR, these remnants of Interahamwe and genociders. They have different group names. There's FDLR, there's Rwanda, there's all kinds of stuff. So there has been a process of repatriation. In fact, a number of them have been brought back, even through the hands of the UN, and reintegrated back in society. So it has been going on for a long time. Many of them, probably more came than those who remained, for a fact. The ones who remained were the core group that for them, they think it is a fight and they must fight. And for them, they are fighting even for a wrong cause, because they are talking about the old story of Rwanda. It's like that was underlying the genocide itself. So they want a country for one group of people and not for the other. And for us, we've been saying, no, all groups belong here. Those ones that, as we found it, as God created our country, and people happen to be here, they are one and the same, and they need to be together. But for the hardcore, they think of different things. So now, recently, these FDLR are fighting alongside FARDC, those are the forces of Congo, against M23. And then to make it worse, the UN got into the mix. They were purportedly supporting FARDC, meaning government forces, but they knew very well that these government forces of DRC are fighting together with the FDLR against M23. So you have one M23 on one side, and then you have MONUSC, government forces of Congo, and FDLR. FDLR, which should have been fought and eliminated from that situation, together with repatriating them, those who wanted to come back home, which we have done. So that's where we are. And that's why I cannot understand why the president of Congo would, in his statement to the press, say such a things as he said, because he should very well know the facts as they are, because we have even discussed these matters for a long time, well before, since he came to power and well before this crisis. So this crisis, therefore, will require one thing. There are a number of things that have happened which I haven't mentioned, but I mentioned them in the conclusion of my point. One, Congo has its own things to deal with, and we have our own things to deal with as independent sovereign countries. Without having to interfere with each other, we just have to work together where we choose to work together. And it is not acceptable, it's not going to ever be, that FDLR, these genocidal forces, or remnants of them, will be armed to attack Rwanda. And if you remember, in 2019, there was an attack that came from Congo, 2019 in November, I think, where groups infiltrated through the Virunga Mountains and attacked Kinigi, and our forces intervened, defeated them, removed them. So, and second, we have had sharing from the DRC territory into Rwanda, which damaged, killed people, damaged property, and several times. Now, so we are saying, all along we need peace, and we need peace for both of us. There needs to be peace in Rwanda, there needs to be peace in DRC. Therefore, we should give each other peace. So it's not acceptable that FDLR ever would be supported to cross into our territory or supported to share into our territory and kill our citizens. We have not done that to Congo. Second, there is a need to politically address this problem of Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, including those members of so-called M23. But that is the problem of Congo to address. It's not mine.
If you could allow me interrupt, Mr. President. You say that it's not your problem, it's not Rwanda's problem, it's a Congo problem. However, Rwanda keeps on being dragged into the situation.
Yes.
And you have so eloquently talked about the history. Mm-hmm. This is not the first time. The situation keeps evolving and evolving. Rwanda has suggested what could be the solution. You said arms wouldn't solve this. And yet some of those solutions that are being suggested are not being taken into consideration. And you have a head of state going on record constantly affirming some of those allegations. You talked of facts being ignored. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Do you think there's anything that can be done from the Rwanda side to find a way where there could be a different outcome and perhaps history could paint a different picture moving forward?
Well, for lack of a better way of putting it myself, first of all, I wish for the best for all of us, for both of us, Congo and Rwanda. But if the best doesn't come, it should always find me prepared for the worst. So that's the first way I approach it. I prepare for the worst, but wish for the best. And I mean it. I mean it to say I wish for Congo the best, as I do wish for myself, for my country. But again, there is no magic solution here for me, other than presenting the facts as I understand them. And the facts have been presented. So it's up to all the players concerned with this problem, whether they are Congolese or Rwandans or the internationals involved one or the other, maybe to stick to the facts and find the best way out of this problem based on the facts, not people creating their own facts or simply thinking that they will impose a solution to one party or the other. So that's the only way I can say it. There is no other way.
But still on this issue, Mr. President, we do have a question that came in from a member of the international media community, Loch from RFI, who says the Congolese government said that no Rwandan troops will be in the East African Community Force set to be deployed in Eastern DRC, while Rwanda had said it was ready to participate. What is your reaction to this conclusion? Will Rwanda participate at another level in the force?
First of all, they were talking about the East African Community Force. And much as we are all new, if my memory serves me well, Rwanda was in the East African Community before DRC. But that's okay. We are all members of East African Community. So when they were talking of East African Community Force, naturally that implied Rwanda is part of the force, right? But to make the process and the solution easier, if the party concerned, which is the DRC, claims it has problems with Rwanda participating. I have no problem with that. We are not begging anyone that we participate in the force, all right? But what that also means, whoever goes there, whoever is liked or is invited by DRC to be part of the East African Community Force, excluding Rwanda, which I have no problem with, must address these problems I was talking about. You see what I mean? If anybody is coming from anywhere, excluding Rwanda, but to provide a solution that we are all looking for, why would I have a problem? If they come saying, we are going to eliminate this FDLR from this equation that keeps creating problems between Rwanda and the DRC, and keep saying, we are going to support peace in this part of the region of Eastern Congo, and make sure that, one, the Kinyarwanda-speaking communities, M23, are now reabsorbed into the Congolese society and given rights as they are as citizens of this country, and there is no more. Then these people have no reason to keep fighting or causing any trouble. And if a force is going to support that political process of supporting government of Congo to reach a solution to this effect, why would Rwanda have a problem with that? If this force gives guarantees to Rwanda that no more sharing from Congo of your territory by either Congolese or by FDLR because we have eliminated them, why would I be opposed to that? In fact, I'm very happy that this can be done without our involvement. Okay. Yes, because getting involved is a cost to us. So why would I incur the cost when somebody is saying, no, I'm happy to do it for you? I have no problem with that, absolutely.
Another center of attraction for controversy and criticism has been Rwanda's planned reception of migrants from the UK. If I could engage you on that, Mr. President. Especially, we saw a lot of criticism, heavy criticism, after the cancellation of the first chartered plane that was set to bring in asylum seekers. Now, could you please shed more light on why Rwanda entered into this partnership with the UK to begin with, and also what the next steps could be for the Rwandan government concerning this issue?
Well, first of all, the migration problem is a very complicated problem all over the world. Having said that, if we can contribute even a bit to addressing it, we are happy to do that. And by the way, given that migration or refugees issues are not new to us, some of us have lived that kind of life for decades. So we fully understand what that means. The other problem is defining the rights and many issues about migration is difficult in itself. There are rights of people as human beings that should be respected wherever these human beings are. To an extent, mine, personally, my rights were respected to an extent when I was still a refugee, which I was for decades. Of course, but those rights are only limited in a sense as rights of a human being. You are only given the minimum. So in far as referring to the minimum, I was at least afforded that. The other one, let's say the bigger question, like the one of UK and in the partnership with Rwanda, how it came about, this was building on a history again. I like referring to things as they build up in history. We got involved with assisting in migration issues, first with Israel, second with Libya, third, we helped in a small way with Afghanistan, and then there came UK. So this is the fourth. Specifically, let me single out the one for Libya, which we went out to actually ask to help. The other three, we were asked to help. But for this one, we are the ones who asked to help. So with Libya, with the people stuck in Libya, with the crisis that had taken place in Libya, which had been used as a transit route for migrants to the north, to Europe, from different parts of Africa. They are going through Libya and most of them dying in the Mediterranean. And so, but because of the crisis in Libya, thousands of them got stuck in Libya in different towns, and they were in prison, literally prison. Is what I'm talking about. It's a fact. And detained for years, for months, for years. And they were stuck there. In fact, they started smuggling these people who were stuck, buying them as slaves, taken to different parts of the world. So we could see people in cages and buyers coming and looking at who is still fit, not macheted or starving, and they take them to Rwanda. This is the situation. And we offered. In fact, we did that when I was the chairman of the African Union. And I told people, I said, these people, Rwanda has many challenges, we have our own struggles, we are going through difficult situation, but we can provide a more decent living for these people, a better living for these people than we are seeing they are suffering. And we told them, we offered them, and they said, we can bring them to Rwanda and then allow those people in the world who want to help to be able to help. One, by either the countries that can offer these people asylum, they will do it in a stable environment, that is within Rwanda. They'll come and see who they want to absorb and take to their countries, peacefully pick whoever they want. Another country will come and take whoever they want to go and settle them. The second, we would give a chance to these people to say, do you want to go back home where you came from? After discovering that your venture didn't work properly for you, would you now want to go back home? The third category would be, if you have nobody picking you to take you to their countries, and you don't want to go back to your country, we can even offer you to stay here with us. Still, it is a better situation than you're having detained in Libya. So As you are aware, so many have been brought here, and now about 1,000 of them have actually been taken to different countries, to United States, to Canada, to some Scandinavian countries, and so on. So, could there have been a better way of dealing with it? At least for us, we couldn't think of a better way of doing it. For the others, why didn't they think of a better way of doing it? But at least we offered and saved the situation. Now, with this one of UK specifically, if I may come to that, UK and Rwanda. UK has been facing a problem of people smugglers. Like we had the experience in Libya. These people are smuggled, and some of them sold and bought like commodities. So there have been people exchanging money and to transfer people by force and take them into UK. And it has been growing as a problem day to day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So the UK approached us. And based on the lessons they had learned about how we handled the Libyan case, and even the other two, Israel and Afghanistan cases, and said, can you help? And he said, for us, and by the way, if any other country wants the same, we shall offer it. It's not confined to, so if any other country approached us and say, we have a problem here, can you do this? We will look at the merits of the case and say, sure. As long as you don't overburden us with this problem. Because we are a country that has no resources. We have limited resources.
Where do you draw the line? What looks like overburdening? Because there's been a lot of questions around capacity and burnout for the nation in terms of how much you are extending help.
Yeah, but that's a good question. But what I mean is simple. If you are going to bring somebody here and say, I'll bring him here, I look after him. It's not you to look after him. Then I have no problem. Overburdening I'm talking about is to bring me somebody and then you say, look after him. Because I have no spare capacity to look after, even the one to look after Rwandese is so limited. So, but to that extent, I think, and by the way, we also learned lessons long ago. Remember when some of us were refugees outside of our country. And whenever we demanded to come back home, the government then used to tell us, they said, no, Rwanda is overpopulated. We have no place for you. So it's like, you stay where you are. So, but what we learned from that, the country, any country is never full to that extent. It always has space, especially for its citizens. No question about it. But even then, a country like ours, which is, yes, densely populated, actually still not only has enough space for our people, we have enough space even for others. This is the lessons we learned. Yes. I have seen a lot of writings in the New York Times that are not well informed at all, but rather things that are just written there reflecting biases of those people who write them. But that's a question for another time. So on this one, for academics, rights groups, no, but I wish this person asking this would be telling us or telling me the right way of dealing with these problems, complex problems, as of the academics and rights groups. Because these academics and rights groups should present to us well-researched, well-informed, and right ways of dealing with these challenges. And then maybe once we have all seen that and argued about it from different experiences, a guideline could be created and say, you must follow this guideline. But they are not presenting, even the person referring to these academics and rights groups are not referring to us, are not giving us the guidelines these people have set forth through research, through different ways of experiences that could contribute to that. No, they're just making a criticism. No, but I have explained where we have come from ourselves as Rwanda, knowing that the migration issues are broad and complex and everywhere. In fact, it happened that one time I was being asked about this migration problem and the UK and Rwanda partnership. And then just as I was stepping out of the room, I was looking, watching the news. There were things happening between Morocco and Spain, and then there was another thing happening, Mexico-US border, then to do with the same. So why don't these good people advise those countries to how they should go about these matters? What I see is the complexity and really difficulty of these, presented by migrants and those having to deal with them. It's like anybody in the world is dealing with it the way they want, but I have explained what we are doing with UK. It is specific. It's dealing with people being bought and sold and forced across borders. And the country is saying, no, we can't keep having this. There are those, naturally, there are people who have been made, by the way, UK citizens, as we have done. There are people who have been made Rwandan citizens from other countries because they meet certain criteria and standards of enabling us to give them either this status or managing them in whatever way that is appropriate, that gives them a chance for life in the future. So I don't know if anyone is saying what you did between the UK, it's not enough to characterize it that way generally without being specific. What is it that is being done wrong by UK saying there are people being smuggled into our territory? No, we have to accept some people, and they have accepted some people into UK and even given them citizens of all nationalities. We have done that ourselves, and now here they are saying, no, we have to stop this smuggling of people into our country so that we have enough time and space to identify those who meet the criteria, those we can allow in and those we have to reject. Because that is the issue. If you are going to say everyone will run to any country as they want, or will be smuggled into any country, and that country is forced to accept them, I don't think you are going to succeed. It's not going to work that way. Yes. All countries, including Rwanda, will accept people, but we have criteria of how we accept these people. Except, for example, refugees. Refugees, when they come rushing into a country because they are refugees or just going, in a way, you accept them. But that's why they are put in camps and they are kept as such, as refugees in those countries. But they are not necessarily accepted and integrated as citizens of any country automatically. No, that's not what happens. So, but if you had people smuggling others into any country, then that country has a right to say, no, we don't accept this smuggling. We have to stop it. We have to sort out these people according to certain criteria that we accept. This is what I'm saying. So those good people should explain to us, should draw for us guidelines. What do we do? How do we deal with the migrants? But for the time being, I think we have to deal with it the way we are dealing with it, and we think there's nothing wrong with it.
There's no doubt that the Russian invasion of Ukraine has signaled in some way change in the global order. But what does that mean for Rwanda, and what does that mean for Africa on the global stage?
Well, the problem of Russia and Ukraine has, again, a long history. It has a context. It has, you can identify the wrongs, the rights, and but at the end of the day, I hope the world will, in the ways it has been working together or differently, we should find a solution and go back to a normal situation. I hope that time will come when, but for now, it is clear the intensity of the fighting between Russia and Ukraine increases the crises that affect the rest of the world, starting with those people neighboring that area. Africa is affected in many ways by, there is already talk of food crisis, rising fuel prices and fertilizer, and those who are getting plenty of those things from either Russia or Ukraine. Things are not flowing as well as before, and therefore naturally. So you see inflation attacking different economies because of that. You see prices really of many things rising. So Rwanda and Africa are affected as much, or if not even more than others. Now, the issue for me, I want to look at it as a crisis that for some reasons or in some way must come to an end. But how, of course, is still the biggest question. The question of, for me, saying this one is wrong, this is one is right, here, there, and in the end, I think doesn't provide a solution for me or for Rwanda, or doesn't even contribute much. So we hope the international system, in its way of working and dealing with the problems, a solution can be found, and at least minimize the damage caused by war and people dying, and then economies being affected. As Rwanda, we have very little to contribute to that, one way or the other. So tend to look at it and prepare for its effects and try to survive that, but also working together on the continent of Africa. We need to find a way of making our economies resilient and making our survival in such a crisis possible. What else can I say about that crisis?
We have Benedict Namata from the East African, the Nation Media Group, who is asking, is Rwanda punching above its weight, taking in the globe's unwanted? And she highlights refugees and also leading important global groupings. She highlights the Commonwealth and Francophonie, rooting for peace on the continent, most recent deployment in Mozambique, Central African Republic. What would you say to that?
Well, we are not trying to do anything that looks like or sounds like impossible. We do things because in our calculation, we have found that we can contribute something. We don't want to be a solution for everything everywhere, far from that, because in any case we can't be doing that given our own limitations, which we are very consciously aware of. So when we are trying to do whatever we have tried to do, we do that because it's possible. We think it's possible. And really we look at it in terms of not carrying the burden ourselves alone, but rather contributing. We always want to contribute. Everything that was mentioned is about the possibility we see available and the opportunities that come with that. And then the fact that we can make a contribution and we have it within ourselves that to be able to do that. So far, whatever we have done, we've proven ourselves right that we could contribute. We haven't seen anything overwhelming us to the point that we should be reminded that we shouldn't have done it or we took too much on ourselves. So far, we haven't seen that. But it is a good point in as far as that becomes a reminder that when you are going to do something, you see beyond it and see what is it going to attract. Is it opportunities? Is it problems? Is it so we think about that always before we do anything.
We've seen leaders who've had daughters and suddenly they have a different perspective on women empowerment and women issues. You are a family man and now you're a grandfather. How has that impacted the man that you are, but also the leader that you are?
Well, I think everyone finds the blessing in what they love and what they feel good about. As far as my family is concerned, it comes first in the well-being of the person, me. And so getting children or getting grandchildren simply makes life better. And as we go about the other very important things, like now the duty is part of all of us, what we have to do every day. The other one I said, the me, the person, how life changes with that, but then the work also is part of it, and work is made much easier if my well-being is uplifted. So my ability to do my work and do it the best way I can is impacted or improved by my well-being as far as my family and everything else personal and private is concerned. So that's how it goes.
I'm a kingo, yes I'm a kingo. I'm a kingo.